Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. We are joined with us tonight, Phillip Tran. He is with Waste Management, and we are very, very happy to have him. Hello, Phillip.
Hi, Elizabeth, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you to Marlene's for letting Waste Management join us as we kind of discuss different ways to be a little more eco-friendly, bring a little green to the holiday cheer. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me see here. Oh, and let me remember share sound. So I will be playing a video later on for those of you who want to join in and see what's happening. And I can see you, Elizabeth. Can you hear me okay still and see my screen?
Oh, yes.
Great, great. Well, again, yeah. So today we'll talk about the eco holiday. And, all this that I'll be going over extends past any holiday, whether it's, Christmas, Hanukkah, etc., Thanksgiving, and July 4th. But today we're focusing on the holidays in December. So without further ado, we'll be going over kind of running through a recycling 101. I'll share with, why does it matter? We'll go through recycling basics and you can ask some questions about certain items. And if I can't answer it today, I'll be sure to, I'll have my email at the end of it and you can reach out to me and feel free to ask me questions after this presentation and follow-ups as well. So, and then like I said, I'll share a video of our material recovery facility, otherwise known as a MRF. If anyone has gotten the chance to visit a MRF in person prior to COVID or any time, anywhere during, it's pretty cool. So I do have a video to share kind of behind the scenes and you'll see why exactly plastic bags cannot be recycled at the curbside and other such items. And then we'll talk about ways to make this holiday a little greener, little tips and tricks and reminders. And then I'll share lastly some resources that you can access and go to on our website. So starting off here, when we look at our waste stream and what we can and can't recycle and reuse, we have to look at our waste stream and what we're currently throwing away. And this is a little while back, this graph here, but it's still pretty true. It's roughly 4.5 pounds per person per day. A lot of the material in this waste stream is recoverable. So that's good, but it does take a little effort on everyone's part. Whether it's wood, paper, glass, yard trimmings, etc. And there's food waste on this graph as well. So, and we'll talk about that too. But we do use quite a bit of material here in the US, and we'll talk about how much we consume. Starting with this artist, I'm going to run through a couple pieces. So, it kind of covers this local artist, Chris Jordan from the P&W, set out to illustrate kind of how much we consume. So with different art pieces. This here is an art piece. It's called Paper Cups, and it depicts how many cups in the US, number of disposable hot beverage cups are used in the US every 15 minutes. And feel free to think in your head. I know some people are on mute, so I don't necessarily wait for people to shout it out. But if you want to shout it out, feel free to do so right now. But every 15 minutes in the US, we go through about 410,000 cups. On myself, I definitely always try and use a reusable mug, cup, etc. And if you have one, I encourage you to bring it where you can safely. I see Elizabeth drinking her mug there with some hot tea maybe. But yeah, definitely, trying to do what you can is part of the solution. And here's another piece. At first glance, it might look like a collage of color. It kind of looks cool to me until you zoom up and you see that these are plastic bottles. So the question is, every 5 minutes, how many plastic bottles does the US run through? Feel free to think in your head, feel free to throw it in the chat, say it out loud. And I'll tell you that, and this was a little while back again, but this is probably still roughly true. We go through about 2 million bottles every 5 minutes. Again, I would encourage people to bring, here's my bottle again, to use your bottle, to bring your reusable bottle when you can, and when safe. Sometimes there is a good use for plastic bottles, and that's fine. Or, maybe you need that Gatorade on the go, and that's fine too. But when you can recycle it or use a reusable. So here's a few more here. This here are plastic bags, a pretty big one. And here in Washington, there was a recent bag ban. So, this number might be trending downwards actually. But every 5 seconds, think how many plastic bags do we use? I'll tell you right now that we go through about 60,000 plastic bags, which is a whole lot. But again, I think this number is hopefully trending downwards. And what you can do is bring your reusable grocery bag to the store. And I know it's one bag at a time, but overall, if we're all doing something, the policies are in place. So now it's just about action on our part. And I think it can make a difference here. So 60,000 every 5 seconds. And then K-cups, again, it's okay when people do use them, but if you can use other types of coffee, almost 25% of American homes have a single cup brewing machine, such as Keurig. I know my family has one, but there's also a reusable pod, and you can put in fresh ground coffee. But if you wrap it around the earth, it can go about 10 times, and that is probably a bigger number today. And if you have time afterwards and you're interested in learning a little more about stuff, there's actually a really cool documentary called The Story of Stuff Project. And you can go ahead and just go to YouTube, and it's a really cool video that goes through all the stuff that we've consumed, and is really enlightening. So I encourage you to go check that out after. Moving along here, I don't mean to say plastic is terrible. Plastic is pretty fantastic if you really think about all the amazing things that it's allowed us to do. It's a revolutionary invention. It changed the way goods were made, shipped and packaged. In fact, right now, without plastic, we wouldn't have such convenience and breakthroughs like the vaccine distribution. Right now, that's a lot of it lends itself to the invention of plastic, which, by the way, was only created, I forget the year right now, but it's been less than 100 years since it was invented. So, if I think there's a good way of using plastic, but managing it is another part of the story. So, yeah. Now, recycling is great. And by recycling, you're going to be helping to save a lot of resources, natural resources, energy, water, money, and reduce pollution. When your paper, looking at paper, for example, is made virgin paper, it requires a lot more energy. So recycled paper uses up to 70% less energy because of all the processes throughout that chain, whether it's hauling wood in forest and cutting it down and turning it into pulp, et cetera, et cetera. You don't see it in that sheet of paper in front of you, but you have choices when you go out and purchase items, and that's one thing you can do. Energy, the energy saved from one recycled aluminum can light a 100-watt bulb for about 20 hours and maybe longer, depending if it's LED. Making glass from recycled material uses a lot less water, and it's reduces related water pollution by 50% and air pollution by 20%. And recycling is good for jobs. They create a lot of jobs. Recycling alone sustains 10 times more jobs than landfilling or incineration. I'm sorry. There are plentiful more benefits to recycling. And we'll go over kind of like how that process goes. So moving along here. And that picture, by the way, was a picture, and we'll go over the recycling process right now. But that truck you see on your screen right now on the left side, that's the truck that will pick up your material from your green bin or your apartment green dumpster with all the recyclables. And then it'll go to our facility, a transfer station or a MRF. For recycling, it'll go to a MRF or a material recovery facility. and it'll dump everything onto an area called the, from the hopper to the floor, and big machines will push it along, and then it'll collect onto these channels here. But there, a lot of the tipping floor is what it's called, sorry. And the machine you see on the right, collecting what we call as a bale, a big square, compacted, dense square of material. This one looks like it's paper. It'll also go through spinning. On the right, top right corner, you have spinning disc that helps paper move along. And then that bottom left picture is someone helping to sort manually to pick out contamination, which is important. And on the bottom right is a picture of glass. Looking at this page here, what determines recyclability? A lot of things have to be true, and all of this is important. Preparation, separation, markets, and manufacturing all determines if an item is recyclable. So it's not just the fact that something physically can be turned into another material. It needs to satisfy all these other requirements. So preparation, is it clean and empty of all debris? So you might have heard pizza boxes that are oily and greasy. You can't really separate that apart. And separation, so the recycling facility must be able to separate it out into different groups. If it's too small, again, like maybe small bottle caps, those can oftentimes get lost in our facility and maybe cause contamination in the overall bale. So that's why we encourage people to either tighten the bottle cap on or just leave it out completely. And then you have markets. A manufacturer must be willing to take that material. So with different policies in place and markets changing, the recycling guide and what you can and cannot recycle can change as well. And that's at the curbside, and it's part of what determines if something's recyclable or not. And then manufacturing, someone must be willing to take that material and turn it into something new. And so when markets change and manufacturers change what they use, that can also change what can and cannot be recycled at the curbside. So I will show a few more clips before we jump into our video here. Here in this picture, you're gonna see these are bales of, looks like either cans or bottles. And these are shipped and ready and crushed into big bales, and they'll be ready to be shipped out to manufacturers who would have purchased these materials, and then they melt them down and use them for whatever they are gonna make. And in this picture here, again, on the left, going from left to right, you have the tipping floor where a truck will dump everything onto the floor, and these big machines will push them into a corner where they go onto these belts that move, and they help funnel all these materials where it'll get sorted into spinning discs, and that you see that paper gliding. And this is all clips I'll show you in a second of the video. And on the third panel, you see plastic bags getting caught in spinning discs that help a lot of materials move through. And that's why one of the biggest contaminants that we have at our facilities are plastic bags, other kind of loose film. It doesn't feel great to throw plastic bags away, but unfortunately they're not recyclable at the curbside. There are other ways, if they can be sorted, then that's great, but definitely bagging recyclables, that's also very much not encouraged. They should always go in loose, empty, and clean. And then the last panel you see is a worker, again, manually working to get rid of contaminants from the recycle stream. So let me go ahead and share this video clip. I believe you can see my screen, and I'll go ahead and mute myself and play this video. And Elizabeth, I can see if you can't hear the sound, let me know. But it's going to be a short video of everything through the process, and I might end up talking here or there. All right.
We are inside Waste Management's Cascade Recycling Center. What we're looking at now is the tipping floor. So these are all the recyclables straight out of the recycling trucks. Haven't been sorted yet. The very first thing that happens, as you can see, is the recyclables are loaded onto a conveyor belt that goes all throughout the facility. we call the free sort line. This line is really important. This is where we're manually pulling off anything that ended up in the recycling that shouldn't have. This includes items that we call tanglers, plastic bags, garden hoses, anything that can tangle around machines and cause them to shut down. So this is a really important job here of pulling out any contamination, making sure that it doesn't make it into the final bales. From there, the recyclables are sorted using a spinning disc. The spinning disc serves to separate out the paper and the cardboard from all the other recyclables. So here we can see the cardboard being separated from all the other materials. So they sort over the top of the spinning disc. Anything that's not cardboard is just going to fall between the spaces of the disc. And you may notice that there's a plastic bag wrapped around one of those discs. That's why it's really important to make sure that plastic bags and any other tanglers stay out of the recycling. Because as mentioned, they tangle around things and cause machinery to break down, which makes the recycling process really inefficient. And then these are the final, or almost final, sorted off cardboard boxes. And after this, we're going to see in a second, there is a final quality control station to make sure that those are the highest quality recyclables possible. This is another really similar station. So these are also spinning discs, but these are actually for paper. So mixed paper like office paper, a little bit smaller sheets, and so as you'll notice also smaller spinning discs. Here is another manual sort line, making sure to pull off again anything that's not actually recyclable that may have gotten mixed into the stream. So this is the other side of those cardboard boxes. So what these folks are doing here is they're sorting through and they're making sure that everything in that line is actually what it should be. It's actually cardboard, and if it's not, they're pulling it off the line. And you'll notice they have multiple bunkers on either side of them. So sometimes materials will get mixed in, and they're not cardboard, but they're also not garbage. So we want to make sure they have the option to still collect those so that they can still be recycled. You may hear a noise that sounds kind of like a puff of air. And what that is us sorting out the plastic bottles. So we use an optical sorter, and anytime it detects a PET plastic water bottle, it blows a puff of air which pushes it off of the conveyor belt. And as you can see here, those are the sorted off plastic water bottles. They're all going to be baled together so that they can be recycled. This is actually my favorite sorting station. This is the reverse eddy current. So here we are sorting off the aluminum cans. When they get to the end of this line here and they hit that eddy current, it causes them to pop off of the belt. So that's how we're separating all those cans from all the other various recyclable materials. So we saw how plastic water bottles are sorted, but we do also take other plastics. So now we're going to take a look at another manual sort line, and these folks are looking to pull off different types of plastic jugs, and they're actually sorting them based on color. So one person is looking for clear plastic milk jugs. See a whole lot of them there, and then someone else is looking for laundry detergent containers. More quality control over here. The way we sort our glass is actually by purposefully breaking it. And So once the glass is broken, it ends up on this skinny conveyor belt. Here, do you see the one on the left? And from there, it actually goes under a vacuum. You can see right there, that's the vacuum. To pull off any small materials that might have gotten mixed in with the glass. So things like plastic bottle caps that were loose or shredded paper. And then from there, it ends up in this clear glass line. And then it goes to a pile, and we actually just ship it, or we put it into a truck just like that, broken. That's the most efficient way to ship it. And it goes to Seattle for recycling. So glass recycling is a really, really local process. What we're looking at now is the machine that is sorting out our tin or soup cans. This upper conveyor belt actually has a magnet in it. So anytime one of those cans comes along, it actually picks it up, kind of throws it, separate it out from everything. And lastly, we have our paper magnet. This, of course, isn't actually a magnet, but what it is a very steep incline conveyor belt with small holes in it that suction inward. So any smaller pieces of paper that may have not gotten sorted out with the spinning disc is going to stick to that conveyor belt, take it all the way up to the top, whereas anything else like a can or any other recyclable is just going to roll down and not make it through the process. So that's how we ensure that we are recycling all the paper that makes it in so that we can get the highest diversion rate possible and make sure we're recycling everything we can. What we're looking at now is our baler. So once the cardboard has been sorted out, it's gone through quality control, it's then loaded into this baler. So it's being fed in right now, and this is the final product. So after all the sorting, it ends up in these bales that are loaded onto a truck, and from there they're shipped off to the various end markets. And it looks like we also have some plastic bales as well. All of the different material, with the exception of glass, are going to end up in a bale and then be sent to the recycler, turned into a new product, and then start the cycle over again.
All right, yeah. So I hope everyone, maybe you learned a little bit, but I love sharing that video because I think so often it's, when we say like, this isn't recyclable or this is and why, it all sounds kind of abstract, but if you can see how exactly things get processed, it makes a lot of sense why, something like shredded paper is not really recyclable in this curbside process, just because shredded paper is so small and gets like thrown around everywhere with the sorting process that we have and that is generally available. It's very hard when it's commingled, meaning everything goes in the same bin, then it's really hard to recover shredded paper. And things like small bottle caps, those are really small and can just get kind of lost in the process. And why, as you can see from this screen here, plastic bags are absolutely terrible. And we can go over a little more. If you saw the spinning disc, it wasn't quite as bad, but that picture there is a pretty bad scenario where it causes the whole facility to shut down, and then someone has to physically climb up and rip them off those discs because there's just no other way. That's the way you have to do it, and that's the way when there's too much contamination, it causes the whole process to stop to a halt, grind to a halt. So yeah, anyhow. I will go ahead and share a little more here. So really we want to just encourage recycling because it's what you should do. It's the right thing. And what you want to focus on are recycling empty bottles and cans when, again, not the bottle caps necessarily, but here in the picture, there are not a lot of caps. If you tighten them real tight, that's fine. So cans, clean and empty. So, and then tin cans, such as like a jar of tomatoes, what we encourage are just clean. So if you wanted to do a quick rinse so that you're not dumping tomato juices into the recycle bin as well, that's not great. Paper, we want it clean, dry, and anything you see there. Also, certain papers do have a heavy plastic lining on them. So if there is a heavy plastic liner, and I know it's a little nuanced, but generally freezer boxes are not really accepted. And that's because there's a heavy coating that keeps frozen foods kind of quality control. So, but it can vary. So I won't say it's black and white there. Recycle correctly. A few simple tips. We want to keep plastic bags out of the recycling container. As you saw, people on the manual sort line just pull giant bags of recyclables right off the manual sort line. And those materials, maybe they have recyclable materials in them, and they won't get to be recycled, just because if we had to be there and ripping up every bag that we saw full of recycle bins or full of recyclable stuff, that would be very, very difficult. So yeah, and food, we want to keep food out too, because a carrot unfortunately is not recyclable, but is compostable. So and the same with kind of soiled paper, as you see on that right picture there next to the apple core and banana peel. That's definitely stuff that we want to compost and not throw in the recycle bin. So just thinking a bit, ways to prevent waste. You can go electronic when you can, if it's a bill. If it's waste management, perhaps WM, we have an online bill payment system, so you can go electronic there. You can set up a draft paper tray. So whether it's at your workplace or at home, you can have scratch paper or recycle it, and duplexing. So printing on both sides, just a default setting on your printer is nice. And choosing to reuse. So going out, maybe you bring a reusable Tupperware, or bring that to go food, bring something like that to go, rather than using a plastic container or a cup. And then also shopping smart. So making sure that you buy durable goods is important. And that kind of leads me to my next part, which we will cover, how can you make your holiday a little greener? So shopping, right? At Marlene's, there's a lot of good things there. You can go to farmers markets, buy seasonal foods when possible. Secondhand items go help extend the life cycle of an item. So we talked about how virgin paper uses 70% less energy than, recycled paper uses 70% less energy than virgin paper, or like goods, aluminum cans, etc. And fun fact I didn't say earlier, but aluminum cans and glass can be recycled indefinitely without losing their quality and integrity. So whereas paper, the more it's recycled, the more the fibers kind of break down. So tissue paper or paper towels, those are not recyclable, just because the fibers are already so broken down that it just makes it really difficult to. And same with paper, different things can't be recycled forever. So food scraps, we talked about how that's a contaminant. So you can compost food scraps when possible. If you don't already have composting at home, we have resources online that help guide you how to compost right and how to compost. Don't waste leftovers. I encourage people, I myself it's a challenge especially during the holidays when, we're buying lots of food to help prepare meals. Having a shopping list and sticking to it, or having recipes planned ahead of time, help you reduce overbuying. And of course, what you already have at home is important. And something that works for me is a eat first bin. So oftentimes we might buy something and then we'll shove it back to the back of the fridge, and then someone else finds it in the fridge weeks later and it's not so pretty anymore and it's not so tasty. Having an eat first bin helps kind of prevent that food waste, and is really helpful, I've found. So you can, and when it comes to holidays, you don't have to not do anything. There are lots of ways to be fun creative and like reuse what you can and composting. So recycled ornament ideas or just decoration. So old sweaters can be wrapped into different ornaments. Old CDs can be little disco ball ornaments, but there's other ways too. And then you can make old light bulbs into little penguin ornaments. They're pretty cute. I have not done this yet, but it's a great DIY activity, especially if you have kids or just a family event. And then, yeah, of course, there's holiday wreaths. This is a creative one, but there's other ones if you have more like pine trees that can look kind of like that traditional wreath look. And then other ideas I've seen are cinnamon sticks, which have a really festive look, and I bet they make the house smell really nice. So yeah, and going in here, again, I mentioned at the beginning of this how this can extend past the holidays. So gift wrapping, you can get creative and do different things. On here, I talked about a just old paper and twine. If you see on the far right, that just paper that can be the back of your Trader Joe's shopping bag, or just other kind of loose paper you have, or maybe it's come from packaging. I know if you buy stuff, they might put paper around it, and you can reuse that in certain ways, like a gift wrap. And then some twine or popsicle sticks are a good way, and it looks pretty cool. I haven't done this yet, but it's a cool way to just tag your gift too. And it makes for a tasty treat beforehand. Old shopping bags and cutouts can make nice gift bags as well. And then old maps and magazines, you can cut out people's name and looks really cool. So yeah. And then, again, I mentioned different resources that are available on our website. There's free recycling materials and educational services, guides for single family, multifamily, and commercial customers. So if you go to our website, wmnorthwest.com, and you can find your city, in this case, Federal Way. We have an app, we have, you can go electronic and pay your bills online, but there's also guides and lots of different resources that are offered by the city and through WM. But the guides are really helpful. It's a virtual PDF booklet that you can go, again, wherever you are. If you're a business, if you're in an apartment or condo or in a single family home, there's something there for you. And other educational materials in other languages as well. So if you don't speak, or if you know someone who maybe speaks another language, there are different resources for everybody. And if not, then you can let us know and we can work on that in the future. But yeah, it's a great place for different services offered. And that concludes our presentation for today. But I wanted to leave time to kind of discuss ways maybe you have different ideas that you go green for the holidays, and open it up a little bit. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and unshare my screen. And yeah, so, and I'd love to learn hear what people might have learned. And again, different ideas you have. So yeah, let me see the chat.
Thank you so much, Phillip.
Yeah.
Presentation.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris. I have a question.
Hi, Chris. Yes, what's the question?
Using twine on the presents, is that because twine will biodegrade and ribbon might have plastic in it, or what?
Yeah, usually twine is biodegradable. It's also a little more reusable. I know I've taken twine off and I can reuse it in different ways or on another gift. I also do that with plastic ribbons and other things. So those are reusable too, if you choose to reuse them. But yeah, they are a little less resource intensive. So
Okay.
yeah.
And I guess I could share what I'm trying to do for holiday green is like give experiences.
Yes.
And I'm trying not to even give a gift card because that's made of plastic, but like maybe an e-gift card. Or
Yes, that's
cash.
a great idea. Or just a Venmo. I know
Yeah.
these days people do that. I don't have a Venmo, but Yeah,
Well-
no, that's a great idea. Yeah.
And then in general, I do like the buy nothing group. So we pass things around instead of throwing them away.
Yes.
what's
I
the
don't
other
know if I
one?
mentioned that.
Yeah, buy nothing. And I thought there was one more thing I do. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, that's pretty convenient.
Yeah.
And I had a question for you. I didn't know I was going to do this. I just saw it on Facebook, but
Yeah.
there's something I've always wondered about being able to recycle what it was, and I can't remember. So I'm going to keep thinking. I mean, obviously we can't recycle the clamshells. That's been a no-no for a while.
Yeah. And that's, people are still learning, but yeah, things have, again, what I went through, what determines recyclability, those 4 touch points. And that's something that really changed with the market. So clamshells are lower quality plastic. Some places where they go, they are still accepted, but in general, it's not a great plastic. And again, as things are recycled, especially plastic and paper, that quality degrades over time. So usually a plastic bottle actually does not turn back into another plastic bottle. That's why you'll see like different polyesters. They can be turned into park benches or other durable goods that last. So you can still recycle them. But yeah, clamshells are not a great, yeah.
Okay.
Great
Yeah, and if you
questions
think of
wonderful
more,
input.
yeah, no, thanks so much, Chris, for these questions. And if you think of more questions, feel free to shoot them over.
Yeah. Oh, that was it. I'm just trying to buy less in general. Like I'm becoming kind of minimalist. Like, do I
Yes.
have to buy this? And then I guess if I am going to buy it, can I get it without packaging? And so lately, the thing that's bothered me the most too has been all this shipping, like having stuff brought to my door, because I'm trying to be safe health wise. And I don't really like going in a lot of stores, which has cut down on my stuff I buy. But all this stuff being shipped is not helping. So any tips for that or anything?
I would just say, shop local, and then, I think what you've been saying has been good. If you see that, like at your farmer's market, there's a local vendor who doesn't have that packaging. And then also the whole shop local for the economy is also great. But yeah, I think the experiences too, for me, I've been really doing that a little more lately than rather giving physical gifts, just because, it doesn't come with packaged styrofoam and everything. But yeah, those are all good ideas. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back, so I'm not distracting. I'm going to go off.
It was good seeing you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah. There are other questions or comments, and I love hearing what people learn, because especially the video, the MRF, when I first visited MRF, yeah.
It was amazing. It was so cool to have that tour and to see all the processes, and that there's so many hands-on workers, and it's not just machines, and they're hardworking people out there. And I wholeheartedly appreciate you, Phillip, and everyone at Waste Management for all you do and helping clean up the world with all these plastics.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I think something else, Chris, you mentioned, it's super important to, just rethink before you recycle. There's a reason why it's reduce, reuse, and recycle, but also I'd put on top of everything, rethink, just because, do you really need that? Because if you don't, then you don't even have to reduce or reuse, because you never had this material or item. And that makes a huge difference. So, yeah,
that was part of it. I was moving stuff all around my house, and I watched my dog watching me, and I think she's probably going, why is she just always moving stuff? And I'm like, I want to have less stuff to move around and be responsible for.
Yeah.
Clothing, just everything. As I look around my house, I want there to be almost nothing there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hard just because, I think it's kind of in this consumer type, society. We're going against the grain there kind of bit. So, Yeah.
You
But
know
also,
what got me
yeah.
too was, did you see that art display in Seattle? Well, you probably didn't because you're too young, but it was like 10 years ago. But I think some of your pictures look like it, where that, you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
maybe that artist is from, I think his name's Chris Jordan. And
Yeah.
that he is a local artist.
That got me to stop drinking Diet Coke.
Ooh, yeah.
Because all those cans in like one day or whatever, like you said, or 1 hour, I was like, oh my
Right.
gosh, I didn't do it for my
Right.
health. I did it for the environment.
Yes. Yeah. And well, and just for those who, don't feel too bad, but aluminum and glass, like I was saying, are the best items to recycle because they can be recycled indefinitely. So if anything, I personally feel extra bad when I don't recycle, when there's nowhere to recycle a can or a glass. And keep in mind, so you can go online to see our guides, but different glasses have different melting points. So for example, Tupperware or like a glass window is not something that we accept at the curbside. And sometimes the best place for that is the trash's landfill. But yeah, a wine glass is different than like say a mason jar glass. And when they all go together, they break down and melt at different points is the biggest reason. So yeah.
Also, something that's recently happened here in Pierce County is that they're no longer having the curbside pickups for glass. And so I've recently had to go out and find one locally, which was actually just right down the road, which was great. But yeah, it's unfortunate that that was taken, but there's still those resources out there, and making that glass difference is very important, like you said.
I do have a quick question too. I came in just a few minutes late and you had your reusable bottle, which I have, which is great.
Oh, yes.
I mean, are we allowed, like if you're at a restaurant or you go to a fast food place, they can't take your cup and redo it, right?
I've seen recently at a place that I got coffee. I also, for the longest time, before COVID, I always brought my bottle in, and it's nice because they give you a little discount, like 10 cents, but it's really so I don't have to use the cup. Some places I think have returned, so you can now use them again. But I think it's probably a store's, case by case basis.
Okay.
Just like with different stores, they don't feel comfortable yet with reopening their space. So, I would say it's a case by case basis.
Okay.
Yeah, but I appreciate the intention and your bottle there.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing too, like with straws, like at the drive-through, I would always forget to say, don't give me a straw. And then they would automatically give me a straw. And then I know I can't give it back. Right. And so, but I think something at the first of the year is they'll have to start asking you if you want a straw.
Ooh,
they
I
can't.
love that.
Yeah. So that'll be good. And silverware, all that stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that's the biggest, there's so many times when it just is in my bag already, or it's already there for me and I didn't ask for it, and it's fine. Like I'm not gonna, don't need to waste my breath there. But I think it's awesome that everyone will ask, and I'm sure it's gonna be a process, but definitely steps in the right direction. Makes such a difference.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, like the to-go stuff, like I will just not eat, I won't get takeout because of all of those containers. like a family of 4, they put 4 like teriyaki chickens. And then the salads are in a separate styrofoam thing.
Yeah.
And then the dressing is in a little plastic cup with a lid for like 4 of us.
Yeah.
So now it's like I'm just either going to eat in or I'm just going to eat at home.
Yeah. It's been really hard, especially during this time, because you also want to support those small restaurants and small businesses. It's been a real challenge, but yeah, at the very least, I do try and remember to no spoon, no fork, because I got mine at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go back off. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, and again, Elizabeth, thanks for having me. And if there are any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I did have a question. I think I put in the chat. I did. Where can someone recycle old electronics such as TVs, stereos,
Yeah.
such of that nature? Because I have heard that some of the older TVs that have the tubes, they're unsafe.
Yeah, no, that's great. So in Federal Way, there are what we call Think Green collection events. If you go to the website, there are various events, and I believe there should be a link there just to see like a calendar of different events throughout the city or county. But if we aren't hosting them, so we have, I believe, 1 or 2 a year, but there's other various events throughout the year in the city, and you can bring your electronics. But if you go to that guide I was talking about at wmnorthwest.com, and you can find the guide and you can find the link to that e-waste guide, or where you can take your e-waste to, including these electronics that you're mentioning. Or at King County, there's also, I believe it's called What Do I Do with ... And you can, if it's like motor oil or your electronics or a mattress, there, what do you do with blank? It's a really great resource as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Phillip.
Yeah, great questions. And again, thanks everybody here.
I'm going to check Facebook real quick, see if there's any questions. And everyone who's here in the Zoom meeting, you're welcome to take this time to ask our recycling expert here, Phillip, while we have him on the call. And want to thank everyone for being here, and also hope y'all have a wonderful eco holiday.
Thank you so much, everybody. And before I leave, Elizabeth, I know you're on camera. If you don't mind, we can take a screen. I'm going to take a screenshot to share on just our social platforms after, and letting people know what we talked about and where they can get more resources.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick screenshot in 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yay!
It's always funny taking a screenshot on
It really is, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone who watched with us on Facebook Live. And I'm going to be putting some resources in the comment section, and have a wonderful holiday.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.